Carson, good to see you again. Been a couple weeks. We've got a really good topic today. You and I were chatting about professional development, ways that you are kind of sharpening the proverbial saw, making sure that you're always learning and improving, whether it's through mentors or networks and things like that, books. Um, how are you staying on top of your game? What are you doing to work on professional development and being intentional about that?
Yeah, I love the question, and always good to see you, Jeff. I think it's interesting also when I compare and contrast, my mentality as a seller in my 20s versus where I am today. People would always ask, like, what sales books are you reading and things of that nature. And I just read fiction when I was younger. I always wanted the escapism element, and I threw everything I had into my work. And I got promoted very quickly multiple times, and I think I got this false sense of I've figured a lot of this out, right? I was in this cold call, outbound call center environment and, very successful, and my teams were successful. And so, for whatever reason, I thought at that moment that I kind of hit this apex. But very fortunately, I came into an impasse in my career where I had to really reinvent myself. And it was humbling, but it was also, really eye-opening to, especially to step into an organization where I already felt behind the eight ball. I felt like everybody was speaking a different language than I was. I had no tech background. My background was in telecommunications and advertising. And, I was pound the phones, call center bred. And I had to go in and I needed to learn how to cultivate relationships for longer term sales cycles in an enterprise selling environment. So, very grateful for that experience. But now it's all about learning. In fact, every team meeting that I have, we have a segment that's built in called "What Are You Learning?" And this could be, things that we're sharing from internal, resources that, somebody stumbled across. I work for a large organization, so there's always some resource that you stumble across, and making sure we're sharing that with the broader team because that's how we make each other better. But also, this could include things that we're pulling in from outside. Could be podcasts, could be books that we're reading or that have read, could be great mentor relationships. And I think that's where I have gotten better and better over the years, is really being able to look at and frankly, even lean in where I'm not as strong or where I want to double down on what I feel my strengths are. So I'll give you a few examples. Learning from and being reflective about rejections and failure. I've made no qualms about looking back at the worst times in my career, what I thought were the worst times in those moments, times when I was laid off without a job, times when I was put on the one and only performance plan of my life. How did I react and respond to that? And when boxed into a corner, I looked for every which way I could to solve problems. So I would learn a lot by looking at what's leadership talking about? What are they saying are the biggest problems that we're facing as an organization? And how can I personally go out and not only solve them in my own business, but then find a way to have that replicated in other business units? And so that's one key area of learning for me, is learning from those rejections and failures. The other one would be the mentorship piece. I didn't have a lot of formal mentors or training early on in my career, and it was really to my chagrin in the grand scheme. I didn't learn how to play the game. I didn't learn how to build consensus. I didn't learn how to be a good team player early on because I was so used to being an individual contributor. And in the organization that I started my career, I felt like I had to be the smartest guy in the room at all times. That was the culture. That's not the case for me today. It is all very much in how can I use my unique skills in order to make everybody else around me better. So that has been huge. And going out and finding these intentional mentors that have helped me realize, and that I've been able to say to them, I want you to be very straight with me. Give me the feedback that's going to level me up. Give me the feedback that's going to get me to the next level. And sometimes they'll tell me the things that I wouldn't want to hear, or that stings or I disagree with at first. But when I'm able to reflect and look back on it, they're dead on. And those have been the mentors that have helped me get to the level that I'm at today. I wouldn't be here without those people. And then lastly, I think it's all about really just looking at how can you continue to make yourself better. This can be in the day to day. Things I picked up from other people around time management and organization. There was someone that I interviewed on my podcast not long ago, and she talked about ruthless discipline of your schedule, learning things like that that make me better in managing my day to day, but also in how I master mindset. That is key. I am very attracted to winning, and this can be, just across the board. I really loved watching and have watched multiple times now The Last Dance. I was a huge Bulls fan back in the 90s. I know everybody was, right? But I did go to games and I studied Jordan and I studied the Bulls. Last year, I read multiple books by Phil Jackson, one being 11 Rings, one being Sacred Hoops, one being The Last Season, and just really diving into that mindset of a coach, because that's the other element. I've transitioned over my career of being an individual contributor who is a high performer into a sales leader that is a high performer, and you're reliant on your team. I also read a lot of just other mindset books, No Time Like the Future by Michael J. Fox. I'm very inspired by him. And with my dad's Parkinson's diagnosis last year, I've done a lot of studying as well of his foundation, and just really dove into, the mindset that he has, what he's been able to give when his career was completely changed and he had to make a big pivot. I've been reading some books by John Wooden. I read The Sales Acceleration Formula by Mark Roberge, who it's a phenomenal data-driven approach to selling. And then just a few other books around, Michael Jordan, sports, The Champion's Mind, the How Champions Think by Dr. Bob Rotella. That's one that I finished this year. And then a couple others that I would definitely recommend that need to be on that list would be let's see, Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, really talking about the Stoic approach. I've talked a couple of times on this show about Winning and Relentless by Tim Grover, who used to train Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and some others. And then Halftime by Bob Buford. When you get to a certain age and you start to look at that back half of your career, how do you really approach that part of your life and your career? So I take a lot of inspiration from those. I get a lot of recommendations around books and podcasts from my mentors, and I just dive into anything that can help me master my craft, from like revisiting the works of Jeb Blunt, all the way to, just continuing to listen to podcasts on a regular basis by people like Mike Weinberg, always trying to consume. I used to listen to a lot of music when I was out in the car. Now it's audiobooks. When I'm mowing the grass, I'm audiobooks, listening to podcasts, just trying to master my craft. And if I can think of one thing that makes me better that day, or that I can share with my team that makes them better, it was all worth it. So really enjoying all of that. I've said a mouthful. What about you, Jeff?
Well, you didn't mention Birth of a Salesman or Authentic Selling, so I'm a little disappointed in that, but that's okay. Those are some good books.
They're great.
Yeah, great advice. I'd say a lot of mine mirrors yours. I think there's probably 4 different buckets I would put this in. First and foremost, like within my own workplace is number one. We're very intentional about learning. We're always having a lot of meetings just to discuss what we learn about everything. Every time we lose an opportunity, we have a meeting to discuss why we lost that opportunity. We try to get feedback from that customer and figure out what we could have done better. And we try to be introspective about our own sales process. We do reviews of our demos. Every time we run a demo, we do a review of the demo. I have scorecards for all my opportunities where I'm constantly answering questions, and we're trying to look at, why are we not able to get the answers to certain questions, or what are the trends that we're picking up, right? So I think within our workplace is number one. Obviously, within your network, or in this case, my network is number two. I have a mentor that I've been working with for a long time, somebody that I come to for advice. We probably meet about once a month. I also, through just one of these other little, communities I belong to, met somebody here in the Boston area. His name is Max Tipton. I'll give him a shout out. He's a VP of sales at Paperless Parts. He and I will meet like once a month and just kind of share some thoughts and ideas, challenges, et cetera. I think just having somebody like that where, you're just on a routine cadence, is a good thing. And so I try to do that. And then I would also say like professional networks. I'm a member of Pavilion, for example, and they have a lot of courses that I've taken. I'm actually starting a new one today called Revenue Architecture.
Nice.
So it starts today. It's a 2-week course, a bunch of learnings I hope to take away from that. But obviously within these professional development communities, you meet a lot of people and you can pick their brain as well. And then I'd say the last thing is in like even the branding, the personal branding things that I do, things like this. I'm talking to you like once every week or two, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, you're asking me for my thoughts on a certain topic, but then I'm also asking you for your thoughts. And I learn a lot just from hearing what you have to say. Even I do a little like podcasting and stuff like that for Humantic, which is one of the companies that you and I are involved with. And so I get to interview guests for that. And I'm learning from that, or even panels that I get to be on from time to time. So I'd say even the things that I'm trying to do to position myself as a thought leader or to brand myself, I'm actually getting exposure to a lot of other, intelligent, experienced folks like yourself and others. And through that, I think it elevates my game just because I'm getting to just hear what they have to say. So I'd say those are like some of the big things for me. Books, that's probably, I'd say fifth. Yeah, I'd say that's another one. A lot of those books that you called out, especially, I got to give the Roberge book some love since I'm part of Stage 2 Capital as an LP. So Mark Roberge, Sales Acceleration Formula, great book, especially for those like myself who are more on like the artsy side of sales, more so than the science. I think that's a great way to learn more about this, be more data driven and more scientific in your sales methodology. So those would be my thoughts. I think a lot of them are similar, or in some cases the same as yours. But you gave me some good book ideas too, so I'm definitely going to check those out.
I love it. And it's phenomenal. I'd be remiss not to point out and echo your sentiment about the opportunity that we have to have a platform and share stories. I think a lot of people don't share stories because maybe they don't feel qualified yet. I'm just a sales guy, and I like talking about the things that I've learned over the years. And if it helps one person, that's extremely fulfilling and rewarding for me. And it's great when you can do these podcasts and shows and you can talk to these great sales leaders on this Social Selling 2.0 show that I do. I mean, we've got some amazing guest stars coming up, like Jeffrey Gitomer and
He's good.
Mark Hunter and Brandon Bornanson and just some luminaries of selling. And it's amazing that all I had to do was ask. And I think that's the key, is that if you go out and you seek learning, you'll find it.
Yep. Yeah. That's, I think, a lot of times for people, they don't understand that it's just this taking the step is the hardest part. It's like showing up at the gym, show up at the gym. It's probably the hardest part, right? So I think putting your foot out there is the hardest step for many.
Well said. Jeff, as always, this is a good one. Great to see you. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
You too. Thanks, Carson.